Please feel free to start out either in a reclined or in a seated position, whatever feels more comfortable to you. We're ultimately going to be starting our movement practice from a reclined position, so that's where we'll end up anyway. And just taking some moments here to settle in. And take a brief inventory. Noticing how the heart is here, how the mind is here, how the breath is here. Sometimes that simple noticing can create some subtle changes. How are the shoulders here? How is the body here? One of the things I've been working with lately is working on changing my perspective and noticing how that creates shifts in the emotions and in the mind. So when I went out for a run this morning, I thought at different points that it was rather unpleasant. And I kept coming back to the notion that I get to do this. I get the privilege of having a body that's healthy enough to exercise, to move, to do whatever it is able to do is more than some. So that sense of shifting the perspective, shifting the sense of gratitude, even if I'm not as fast as I used to be, even if I can't go as far as I used to go, just that sense of gratitude that I am living in this healthy body that gets to do a yoga practice right now, that gets to do all of the things that this body does. So one of the things we're going to be focusing on a fair amount today is the feet. And if there is any part of the body to be grateful for, the feet are definitely one of them. Just absolutely amazing, the feet. The fact that they can support these small things. I've talked about how mine are actually kind of large, but these small things in comparison to the rest of our body, they carry us around. Running today, all of the pressure on my feet, and just this sense of amazement and gratitude for all that the feet do. So we'll be working with that a little bit today, but as we set the intention for the practice, just see about maybe making that subtle shift within yourself of changing perspectives to change your mind. So if there's kind of a thought of, oh, I don't want to do that pose, or, oh, we're holding this for so long, see if that can just be an invitation to shift a little bit. And from here, we'll take the right knee and hug it in towards the chest. And let's right away start to wake up the feet a bit, taking some ankle rotations, kind of exploring the range of motion, switching directions whenever you want, kind of freestyling it a bit whenever you want to, taking it side to side or pointing and flexing if you don't want to do the circles anymore. maybe taking a few half circles. And then from here, taking that right leg up towards the ceiling. Hands can be at the back of the thigh, or if you have a strap and you'd like to use that instead, please feel free to do so. And then taking the toes and drawing them back towards you. And then pointing the toes up towards the ceiling. Taking that a few times. And if you feel any cramps or anything, just maybe changing the range of motion a little bit, taking a pause. And again, perhaps connecting with that sense of gratitude for the feet. From here, we'll take a bend in that knee, and you can either grab a hold of the ankle, you can grab a hold of the back of the thigh. If you can catch the foot, go ahead and grab the foot, hugging that right knee down towards the right underarm, coming into a reclined lunge or half happy baby. Certainly, if you want to, you can extend your opposite leg. Maybe spreading the toes a little bit, flexing the foot. And then releasing that side. And we'll hug the left knee in towards the chest, taking those ankle circles right away. Feel free to switch directions whenever you want to. Feel free to take the half circles or the side to side motion. Just simply exploring that range of motion for yourself. Noticing if there's little spots that might be a little bit stickier than others. Range of motion not as smooth, or areas that feel particularly smooth. And then we'll extend that leg up towards the sky and take a few rounds of pointing and flexing, maybe finding some articulation in the toes as you move, pushing through the ball of the foot and then through the heel. And then from here, grabbing a hold of wherever is accessible. Maybe you're using the strap, maybe hand is at the back of the thigh, sole of the foot. Bending that knee, not kind of like how we were before when we were hugging it into the chest, just differentiating that movement. So it's a little bit more towards the side body now. A little bit more towards the underarm. A little bit away from midline. And then from here, we'll take both legs up towards the sky, and any amount of bend in the knee is fine. We're going to open the legs with pointed toes, take a little pulse, and then cross the right under the left. Flex the feet with a little pulse. Open, point with a little pulse, and cross right over left. Flex the feet with a little pulse. So we're engaging the core. Flexing and pointing the feet. Especially engaging the core through that little pulse. If you're not feeling it in the core and you want to lower the legs a little bit, feel free to do that. And then whenever you're ready, coming into either knees towards the chest or coming into the full happy baby pose. Whatever feels best for you right now. Perhaps rocking just a little bit side to side. Excellent. And then from there, releasing from that, and we're going to come into a seated position. Here you can take the feet out in front of you with a bend in the knees. Hands can come behind you for now. And we're just going to wave the feet from side to side. So kind of pivoting on the heels, spreading out the toes a little bit, rocking the feet from side to side. And then adding the knees, making the range of motion a little bit more, a little bigger. And then adding the hips a little bit more. So rotating the knees and the hips over to one side and then the other. Loosening up through the legs. And then let's pause with the legs over towards the left. We'll reach the right arm up. Exhale, come through center and take that left arm up. And just taking that from side to side, inhaling to reach, extending through the side body. And exhaling as you pass through center. And then from here, if you'd like to, you can lift all the way up off of the mat, lifting up onto that left shin, reaching the right hip up, left hip up, and exhaling, coming through center and switching sides. Reaching through those left fingertips now. And coming back through to center. We're going to take the legs out in front of us, flexing through the feet. Now, if you have a strap here, you can use it. If you don't have one, no problem. You can walk along the legs. So we'll actively flex the feet back towards us, engaging with a sense of spreading the toes, sitting up really tall. And then beginning to fold forward over the legs. Lengthened spine takes us forward. Finding the hinge through the hips. Reaching the heart forward. And connecting with that sense of really active feet, active kneecaps. And then on the next inhalation, coming all the way up. So you can keep both of your feet down for this next one if you want to add a little bit of something different to it. You can take your left hand to your right foot. You can grab the foot, the calf, wherever is accessible, and just begin to straighten or lengthen that leg out. And we're going to point the toes. So I may even do this from over here. I don't know which is the better view for you guys, probably if I do it like this. So taking the left hand to that right leg, and then we'll take the right hand behind us into a twist with a lengthened spine. So toes are pointed. Feeling that rotation and length through the torso. Feeling a really active right foot as you point through the toes. And then coming back to center, we're going to take that knee just a little bit more in towards the shoulder and just kind of round a bit through the chest. Now you can flex the foot here if you want to. You can grab a hold of the foot, the calf, whatever is accessible to you. Just kind of rounding that upper back, getting a stretch in the upper back. Stretch through the thigh. And then release that foot down. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our fingers and lace them through the feet. So taking the fingers and putting the first finger between the big toe and the second toe. And then it starts to get a little bit trickier. You start to kind of lace the fingers as best as possible, and it just kind of depends on your feet and if this is even accessible or not. But as many toes as you can, separating them with the fingers so that the toes are spread out. Just giving the toes a little stretch on that right side. This is where I could use a cameraman. They could come over and, or woman, and they could come over and just do like a little close up on my foot so you guys could see what I was doing, but hopefully you get what I mean. And then releasing that side. Taking that right leg down, and we'll take the left leg up, pointing through the toes, sitting up really tall, expanding through the chest. And then wherever is accessible to grab a hold of, back of the thigh, the calf, the foot, keeping that right hand planted, and we'll take the left hand behind us as we twist. Sitting up really tall. Taking a few breaths here, lengthening through the crown of the head. And exhaling, coming back to center. And we'll just kind of hug that knee in towards the shoulder, rounding through the upper back, getting a little stretch here through that upper back. And releasing from that. From here, we're going to take our fingers and just kind of lace them through the toes. And one finger at a time, just kind of placing them between those toes in an effort to spread the toes out, giving our feet some love here. And releasing from that, just kind of wiggling out the toes and the fingers a little bit, letting go of that. If you want to stay in this position for cat-cow, please feel free to do so. If you're okay coming to all fours, please feel free to do that. Finding hands underneath shoulders, knees under the hips, and taking that spinal flexion, tucking the tailbone, tucking the chin, squeezing the navel in. And then inhaling, lifting the heart, lifting the tailbone, feeling that stretch through the front body. And taking that at your own pace. Inhaling and exhaling as you move, exploring that range of motion through the spine, the chest. And then coming back to a neutral spine as you're ready. We're going to extend the right leg long and just take a few rounds of rocking forward and back, stretching out that foot, stretching out the calf muscle, a little slide forward and a little slide back. And then if you find that there's a spot where the stretch is pretty good, pressing the heel back, keeping the toes tucked under, just kind of stay in that position for a couple of breaths, making sure that the hands are under the shoulders, finger pads are gripping down. Option here to hug that left knee in towards the chest. So really strong core engagement, upper body engagement. Breathing here, and then releasing that down. And from here, you can replace your right knee and take that left leg back and slide forward and back. If your wrists are starting to bother you, you can take knuckles down. You could change the position of the wrists, turning the fingers out or back towards you for something different. Play around with how the wrists are if that's bothering you in any way. And a few more times here, sliding forward and back. And then we'll pause with that pressing back of the heel. Great. And then hugging, if it's okay for you, hugging that right knee in towards the chest, holding for a couple of breaths, not holding the breath, but holding the pose, engaging the core, keeping the neck long, and releasing from that. You can take the big toes together and press back to child's pose here. If that is not okay for you, you can come down to your belly and do windshield wiper legs. Walking the hands a little bit more forward, getting a nice deep stretch for the chest. And breathing. And coming back upright. We're going to press back to downward facing dog. And from downward dog, we're going to take maybe like one footprint or one step in. So it's a shorter stance, down dog. And from here, we're going to rise up onto the very tippy toes and then press down, heels press down towards the mat. And with this shorter stance, you may find that the heels connect to the mat, rising up to the toes, balls of the feet, and pressing back. Now you can do this with bent knees too if that feels better. When you rise up to the balls of the feet, bend the knees, and then straighten the legs to press the heels back. Either one is fine. Taking that a couple more times. And then we'll begin to walk those feet up towards the mat, or towards the top of the mat, I should say. On the next inhalation, taking a halfway lift, lengthening through the torso, drawing the crown of the head forward, and then exhale, softening the knees, coming into your forward fold. And on the next inhalation, rooting through the feet to rise, coming all the way up to standing, lifting the chest, and exhaling, releasing down from that. From here, taking a quick peek at the feet, lifting up the toes if possible, spreading them out, and then replacing them down onto the mat. Thinking about all sides of the feet really engaging with the mat, feet directly under the hips. Feel a little bit of a softness in the knees so that the feet can plug in just a little bit more, finding that firm foundation. Feeling the big toe edge, the pinky edge, the front and the back. And sometimes you can even rock just a little bit side to side, forward and back, and kind of find that sense of anchoring down to that space that feels the most grounded. And from here, inhaling, reaching the arms up, and exhaling, keeping that engagement of the feet, folding forward. Now in our forward fold, our weight is pretty evenly distributed, maybe a little bit more on the heels. But then when we come to our halfway lift, the weight comes just a bit more into the balls of the feet. So you're a little more buoyant here. Crown of the head reaches forward, chest is long. And then exhaling, folding in. And let's step the right leg back into a lunge position. And from here, finding stability and making your way up to standing lunge. Sometimes when I get into the up position, I need to pop that back foot a little closer, a little further away, finding what's right for you. And we'll reach the arms up. Finding length and space through those right hip flexor muscles. Both frontal hip points are facing forward. Oftentimes there's a tendency in this pose to kind of have the frontal hip points facing down, but we really want to open up. It's a nice opportunity to get a stretch for the hip flexor muscles on that right side. And then as you exhale, sweeping around, grabbing a hold of the back of the left leg, kind of grabbing for opposite elbows. And then inhaling, rising up and taking that a few more times. If that doesn't feel safe or appropriate for you, feel free not to do it, or feel free to do it while holding on to something for stability. So instead of wrapping around the leg, maybe you're bringing the hands to a chair or a counter. And the next time you're up, we're going to stay up. You can take your hand, if you want to something to support you. And we're just going to tuck, just briefly, tuck those back right toes under. So you may want to shorten your stance a little bit. Getting your stretch for the back, or the top of the foot rather, on that right side. And then untucking that, taking the hands down to the mat. And from here, we'll step the left foot back to meet the right in downward facing dog, pedaling or walking out the feet. Finding stillness if you prefer. And then with the next inhalation, we'll make our way into plank pose, on the knees or not. Heels reach back towards the back of the mat, crown of the head reaches forward. And then on the knees or not, lower all the way down to the mat. So from here, lifting up into cobra pose, reaching the chest forward, rooting down through the pelvis. Feet are active, tops of the feet are on the mat. And then play around here a little bit with just lifting the hands up off of the mat, hovering just above the mat, drawing the shoulder blades towards one another, building strength in the upper back. And then you can take the hands down, take a little pause here, rest one side of the face or the other on the mat. Maybe take windshield wiper legs or find stillness. And then take the forehead down to the mat so the upper body is neutral. And we're going to elevate the legs. So we're just lifting them just a little bit. We're lengthening more than lifting. Toes are reaching back. And if you find that the feet aren't even, like the big toe edge is down more or the pinky edge is down more, see if you can kind of even them out, actively reaching. And then we'll open the legs and draw them together. Open and towards one another, and then one more time, open and towards one another, releasing from that. And we'll come back into our cobra pose and combine those two movements. So we're reaching the head, or reaching the chest a little bit forward, neck and head are neutral, and we'll open and close the legs. So it's just that little lift off of the mat. Pelvis is anchored down. Feet are pointed, toes are pointed. Opening and drawing together, and then one last time, opening and drawing together. And then from there, you can take that opposite side of the face down onto the mat. Perhaps take your windshield wiper legs. And staying there a little bit longer, pressing back to child's pose, or perhaps pressing back to downward facing dog. And again, experiment with walking the feet out a little bit, finding that sense of just kind of rolling through the foot, heel, and then coming all the way up to the ball of the foot. And from here, stepping the right foot forward into lunge position. Getting yourself set up with the knee stacked on top of the ankle, and then making your way to the standing position, using whatever tools you need, wall, chair, finding that stability. Frontal hip points nice and forward to get that good stretch to the left hip flexor muscles now. Arms can reach up, fingertips active, and try to engage here as best as possible with all sides of that right foot, finding a lot of stability there. And we'll exhale, bring the arms through, grabbing towards opposite elbows, keeping stability in the low body, inhaling, reaching up, and exhaling, floating down. Taking that a few more times at your own pace. And the next time you're up, you can stay up
If you want to shorten your stance a little bit and come onto the top of those left toes, giving that top of the foot a stretch, feel free. If that doesn't feel okay, feel free to experiment or not do it. And then stepping all the way forward, coming into your halfway lift, and then exhale, folding everything in. Rooting through the feet to rise and coming all the way up to standing, reaching the chest, and exhaling, releasing all the way back down. Feet again, hip width distance apart. Firmly rooted, you can pick up the toes and move the feet around again, maybe forward and back a little bit. Finding that sense of feeling rooted, softness in the knees. We're going to come into pyramid pose now. So we'll step the left foot back. And with pyramid, you're kind of, you don't just want to make sure you're not crisscrossed with the legs. They're about hip width distance apart still. So you're just kind of stepping that foot right back from where it was. From here, hands can be on the hips and you can begin to hinge down into your pyramid pose, bringing hands either to the mat, the chair, if you have two blocks, down to the blocks. And we're going to move through the feet in a little bit of a different way through this as well. So we're going to come up onto that right heel and then replace the ball of the right foot and lift up onto the ball of the left foot. Replace the heel and then lift the toes on that right foot. So you're just kind of going back and forth, coming up onto the ball of the left foot, and then sliding back, coming up onto the heel of the right foot, coming forward, ball of the left foot, and heel of the right foot. Taking that at your own pace, just kind of rolling through the feet. And if you feel as though you're ready for stillness or you want stillness, you can come into stillness. Maybe you want to play around a little bit with keeping those right toes reaching up, maintaining that sense of being on the heel of that right foot. And then perhaps eventually settling it down to a normal pyramid pose. Breathing here. One more breath, keeping length in the spine. And then making your way up to standing pyramid. We'll step that back foot back, the left foot. So I think, let's see here. If I want to be mirroring you guys, I better go this way. So step that left foot back and keeping that right foot forward, coming into warrior two pose. Arms can reach. Continuing to rotate the right knee and right inner thigh open. And then inhale for reverse warrior, taking that left hand, sliding it down the left leg, reaching the right arm up and over. And then coming all the way back upright. From here, option to come onto that ball of the right foot. So a little bit of a different variation of warrior two. And then releasing that down. Hands can come to the hips, and we're going to straighten through both legs. And from here, if you'd like, you can be on the heel of that right foot and just come about halfway into triangle pose. And then release that foot down for a regular triangle pose, taking the right arm down, left arm up, lengthening through both sides of the waist. And inhaling, rising all the way back up. And before we do the other side, we're just going to step to the center of the mat. I guess you could be at the top of your mat too, it doesn't matter, it just depends on how you have your room arranged. So from here, we're going to take the heels together and the toes apart. We're going to just do some standing footwork. So from here, we'll elevate onto the balls of the feet. And then take a bend in the knees. Take the heels down and straighten the knees. Lifting, bending the knees, replacing the heels, and straightening. Taking that one more time in this direction, lifting, bending, heels, and lengthening. So now we'll bend, lift the heels, lengthen, and lower. So feeling that in the backs of the legs, feeling that range of motion in the feet, obviously working on balance. And one more time, lifting the heels, lengthening, and releasing. And then if you are in the middle of the mat, we'll come back down, we'll come back to the top of the mat, and we will take our right leg back into pyramid pose. Just kind of stepping it directly back from that hip width distance, making sure you feel stable. You're not like as if you were walking a tightrope or crisscross, but about hip width still. And then from there, hands can be on the hips as you hinge forward with a lengthened spine, perhaps taking hands down to the mat or perhaps taking them to a chair or blocks. And we're going to roll kind of through the feet like we did before. So we're lifting up on to the left heel and then lifting up onto the ball of the right foot and just kind of going back and forth a little bit. Experimenting with how that feels, noticing where the stretch can be felt, getting maybe a little bit of a deeper stretch through the left hamstring muscles and calf. Maybe a couple more times. And then pausing in stillness, just what you would normally consider your pyramid pose. Keeping the chest lengthening. Maybe just a tiny bit of softness in that front left knee. And then as you're ready, you can come all the way back up and we'll step that right foot back a little bit further into your warrior two pose. Gently encouraging that left knee open, arms can reach. Breathing here, getting an inner thigh stretch, feeling active through the fingertips. And then we'll inhale to reverse, getting a side body stretch. Feeling that length and space through the left side of the body. And coming back to center. If you want, you can experiment with that ball of the foot, coming to the ball of the foot in your warrior two pose on that left foot. Building strength in the calf muscles, the ankles. And releasing that down. And then again, if you want, you're lifting the toes on that left side and just coming a little ways into like a half kind of triangle position, encouraging the hips down and away so that you can keep that length through the side waist. And then we'll replace the ball of the foot and come the rest of the way down into triangle pose. Breathing here. Tucking a little bit under through that left hip. And coming all the way back up, encouraging the feet back towards one another, heel toeing them. And we'll come into just one more round of kind of balance for the feet. So from here, feet can be hip width distance apart. And we'll rise up to the balls of the feet, and maybe I'll turn this way. We'll rise up to the balls of the feet and then lower down. Lifting and lowering. If you'd like to, you can bring the arms along as you lift to the balls of the feet, reaching the arms up, and then exhaling, floating the arms down, lowering the heels. Taking that a few more times. And one final time, lifting and lowering. Excellent. So from here, let's come into one more balance pose. We're going to sink down into chair pose. So sink the heels way connected with the mat, sink the hips back, lengthen through the torso. I like to start with the hands on the hips to make sure that my tailbone isn't tucked too much or sticking out too much, nice and neutral, so that it feels like something I can maintain for a while. It doesn't feel like horribly uncomfortable. So from here, hands can be at the heart. You can be holding on to something. We're going to cross the right ankle on top of the left knee, coming into our single leg chair pose. I find that if I flex a little more actively through that right foot, that can be helpful with maintaining balance. Also can be helpful on that left foot to anchor down as best as possible through the big toe side of that left foot. And then coming all the way back up to neutral standing, feet are hip width distance. Taking a pause here, rooting down through both feet. And then as we sink back into chair pose, maybe noticing that the weight is a little more in the heels. For some people, it feels better to keep the weight evenly distributed. A lot of times in yoga, you'll hear, get all your weight in your heels, and that's really great for some bodies, but not for all bodies. So kind of check in to see if that feels best for you, or if it feels better actually to have the weight more evenly distributed. Double check in with your pelvis that's fairly neutral, and then we'll cross that left ankle just on top of the right knee, maintaining the bend in the right knee, continuing to flex that left foot, gazing at a focal point, rooting down actively through the big toe mound on that right side. That can be really helpful. Good for balance, but it's also a really nice stretch too. And come all the way back up to standing. We'll take a side stretch here. So slide that right hand down the right leg and lift the left arm up and over. Push gently out through the left outer hip. Feel length and space through the left side body. And then just kind of float that through, taking that left arm all the way over to the left outer thigh, and then reach the right arm up. Creating length through the crown of the head, through the fingertips, pressing out gently through the right outer hip. And then releasing down from that. We're going to come down onto the mat, and you can lay down onto your right hip. If that is not appropriate or safe for your body, you can come to a reclined position. That's absolutely fine as well. feels bad to be on the hip, you don't have to do that. So from here, kind of finding that sense of back body mostly lined up with the back of the mat, and then the legs just a bit on a diagonal, finding something that feels relatively sturdy and something that you can maintain. We'll keep the hips pretty much stacked and keep the shoulders pretty much stacked. And we'll work again with the feet, but of course we're also using the legs and the core. So you're gonna take your left big toe and just kind of tap it down in front of you, and then take the heel behind you. Now you don't necessarily have to connect, you're just making that motion of rotating the foot down and then taking it in the opposite direction. So kind of creating like a half circle, internally and externally rotating, using the core so that you don't fall backwards or forwards. And then coming back to center. And we'll point the toes as we reach the leg up and flex the foot as we lower down. Pointing up and flexing down, nice and slow, controlled, using muscle rather than momentum. And then this time we'll flex the foot up and point the toes down. Flexing up, pointing down, and last time flexing up and pointing down, keeping that point to the foot. We'll take a few circles forward. Anytime you need a pause, you're taking it. Otherwise, if you can continue just staying a little bit longer, we'll take those circles in the opposite direction now. And coming back to neutral, flexing that foot now. So really active flex. We'll swing the leg forward, take a little pulse, and then swing the leg behind, take a little pulse. So through those pulses, working as best as you can not to roll over forward or back, using the core to maintain that sense of kind of strength and stability. And releasing from that. And we'll flip over to the opposite hip. Getting yourself set up. Lots of options here too. You can be supported with your hand. You could have your arm outstretched. You could have your opposite hand in front of you. You could have it on your hip. Kind of play around with what feels challenging but not unobtainable. So we'll do that internal and external rotation, tapping the big toes in front and then making that half circle, heel behind. And my heel is fairly far from connecting, and that's okay. I could connect it, but it kind of gets me out of what I'm actually supposed to be feeling there. We just want to go within a range of motion that feels pretty accessible. Not forcing. So feeling that range of motion through the ankle, the foot, feeling the inner and outer thigh working, core. And then coming back to center, we'll point those toes up and flex the foot on the way down, pointing and flexing. And then we'll flex up and point down. Flex up and point down. And one last time, flex up and point down. Keeping that point, we're going to take those circles forward. Small enough that you're not rocking forward and back too much, that you can maintain control. And then taking that in the opposite direction. And then we'll flex that foot, take a kick forward with a pulse and a kick back with a pulse. Engaging the glutes on the way back. Keeping that foot flexed and active. And releasing from that, we'll roll over onto the back, hugging the knees in towards the chest, rocking side to side a little bit. And we'll take the hands to the kneecaps and circle them open and around. Feet can be flexed here. And then circle them open and around the opposite direction, just making a big circle with the knees, lubricating the hips. And we'll hug the right knee in towards the chest. And then take it about halfway or less across, so no further than like maybe where the left shoulder is. Getting an IT band stretch here. Keeping space between the pelvis and the rib cage on that right side. And then if you'd like to, you can take it the rest of the way across for a spinal twist, reaching the right arm out towards the right. Maybe taking the gaze out towards the right. And then releasing from that. And hugging the left knee in towards the chest. And with the right hand guiding it just a small distance across the body. Halfway or so, staying anchored on the left shoulder. So kind of differentiating this from the spinal twist. This is more of a IT band stretch. Applying some pressure with your right hand, working in opposition. Allowing the breath to slow a little bit, the face to soften a little bit. And then if you'd like to, you can take that the rest of the way across, coming into a spinal twist. Opening up through the chest, maybe taking the gaze out over that left shoulder. And gently coming back through to center. You can extend the legs long if you'd like to, or take a bend in the knees. Just begin to come back to that sense of shifting the mind a little bit to create a slightly different experience. So perhaps shifting it a bit more towards gratitude. Noticing the places in the body that feel particularly good. Noticing the breath. Inviting a sense of softening and letting go to occur. came across this little quote, and I don't know who it's from. It didn't say, but I found it online. And it says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I'll read that one more time, and you can take a moment with those words and any meaning that they have for you. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I'd like to thank all of you so very much for sharing your practice and your positive energy with me this morning. Thank you.